every offseason, there's some free agents left on the market that don't quite understand why they couldn't find a team. On today's episode, me and Kev are going to break down the top remaining free agents and why they've had a hard time finding a new team. We're getting into all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. Me and Big Kev in the building today. Kev, man, we got an interesting topic today. We're going to look over some top free agents left on the market and what has kept them from signing with a new team. The first one we're going to start with is Haize Okoro. Now, he is a restricted free agent, which could be a big part of why teams aren't. But at this point late in the game, the Cavs have given big extensions to, a few of their players, Jared Allen being the most recent one, but they still remain quite a bit below the luxury tax. So, theoretically, a team, even if they do try to match it, the Cavs still could. I mean, even the team gives them an offer sheet, the Cavs still could match it. When you look at the situation with Haize Okoro, we know he's a defender. Offense has always been kind of shaky when it comes to Okoro, but what do you think is keeping him from finding a new team?
I mean, exactly what you said. He's a restricted free agent. And I believe exactly what you just said again. As soon as somebody offers him, they're probably going to match it. Now, you mentioned that his offense is kind of shaky. I would beg to differ. He's just been consistent pretty much since his rookie season. He's been averaging about 10 points, 3 rebounds. But the best thing about him is that he shoots the three at about a 37 to 39% clip pretty consistently. So, I doubt Cleveland's going to let him leave. I think they're trying to see what the market dictates, though. He should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at and considering the big contracts that the Cleveland Cavaliers have, they're still $17 million below the luxury tax. That's amazing when you look at the sizable contracts that they have. Darius Garland's making $37 million. Donovan Mitchell's making $35 million. Jared Allen's making $20 million. You got Evan Mobley still on his rookie scale deal. Next year he starts making $38 million per season. There's only $11 million this year. But they still got Max Strus, Karis LeVert that are making $15 and $16 million. So the Cavs have really operated this luxury tax, and they're not even close to sniffing the second tax apron, which teams are trying to avoid. So I do think that ultimately he's just going to end up back on the Cleveland Cavaliers. They need role players. They need some of that bench depth because they're trying to, catch up with teams. They're trying to pass up the New York Knicks and teams like that. But Haize Okoro is still extremely young player as well. When you look at it, only 23 years old.
Mm-hmm. So. And he's a 3-and-D guy. Like, he turned himself into it from his first season. I think he shot in the high 20s, and he's gotten better every season since, as far as his 3-point percentage is concerned. And he's low maintenance. Like, he's not out there begging for shots or plays to be run for him. He's going to do what he needs to do, to contribute to the team. So even if he doesn't make it back to Cleveland, he's going to be good for somebody.
Yeah, I mean, he's the type of player like T said. I know I said this offense is shaky. You did point. I mean, he has been pretty consistent. Basically, 46% shooter his whole career. He's averaged 34% 3-point shooting, but the last 2 years has been 36 and 39%. So he's even increased in that and in volume. But to me, he's the type of player that he's one of those players that every team needs or wants on their team. And so he's going to get his deal, even if it is a team other than the Cleveland Cavaliers. Because I tell you what, I don't know what their cap situation is like off the top of my head, but like if any team has any part of their mid-level exception, you might as well try to offer it to him because he's somebody who's going to be well worth that value, I would think.
Facts.
So next player that we have on this one, his career has been a very interesting one to watch, and that is Marquel Fultz. We know that he was highly touted in that draft. He ended up getting traded for Jason Tatum. Clearly, the Boston Celtics got the right side of that deal, as they always tend to do, especially. Was Danny Ainge still running them at that point?
It was either the end of Danny Ainge or the beginning of what's his name, the coach from college that quit.
Brad Stevens.
Brad Stevens. It was right around that time.
But either way, really good deal when it comes down to it. But Marquel Fultz still finds himself right now without a team. When you consider the point guard play around the NBA and how Fultz has really, his offense never really turned around like people thought it may look like at the NBA level. But he's turned himself into a really solid perimeter defender, I think. Nothing's consistent with him except, bad 3-point shooting. It's so funny how his 3-point mechanics failed. Like, people thought he was going to come into the NBA and be somebody who can hit the NBA 3-pointer. He's a career 27% from 3, But other than that, shoots the ball 47% from the field. But the defense that he brings, I think, is something, and averages over a steal per game for his career. How you feel about Marquel Fultz, Kev?
I mean, it's tough to measure this kid, right? Because one, he's yet to really be healthy for an entire season.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue for him. His first couple of seasons, he played under 20 games each. Then he finally caught on with the Magic, played 72, but then 8 the next year, 18 the year after that, 60 and 43. So you know that you're not going to get somebody that's going to give you more than 50 games, at least
Yeah.
based on how his career is. That's one. Two, he cannot shoot the three. His best 3-point season was at 31%. That's not good. His his uh
Not for a
his
guard.
his assists have been up and down as well. He did have a 4-year stretch where he averaged 5 or more assists per game, but last season it was just bad. 2.8 assists. Now I agree with you, perimeter defender. Like that's probably what's going to get him to another team if he doesn't stay with Orlando. Is the fact that he plays defense, averaging a steal per game is pretty big. So that means that he has games where he had 3 steals, some 2 steals, and those are
Yeah.
momentum changers. So a player like that who's going to go out there and get it, and get grimy and get his nose dirty, I ain't mad at that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Markel Fultz, like you said, sign him as a back end of your bench guy at this point. You get him, he's still 26 years old. I wouldn't hate it. If I was, there's a lot of teams that could use that, especially as a defender. The question, I think, like you said, it comes down to the health for Markel Fultz. Like, I didn't even realize you said the first 2 years of his career under 20 games. That's crazy. That's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So, we'll see what happens when it comes to Markel Fultz. The next player that we're going to talk about, Talen Horton-Tucker, THT, man. This is another fairly young player, 23 years old. Not fairly, extremely young. 6'4", 234 pounds. Plays shooting guard. When you look at the last 3 years of his career, averaging over 10 points per game in that. Solid defender. Okay, spotty 3-point shooter, but this is a guy who still goes out. Averaged over 3 assists per game the last 2 years. On top of that, doesn't foul a whole lot. Doesn't really turn the ball over either. When you look at THT, what do you think's holding him back from getting the deal?
My bad. My dog came down to say what up to me.
You good, man?
Listen, THT, he's always looked 40. I can't believe he's only 23 years old.
It's
That's
crazy, right?
bananas.
His hairline he's on LeBron hairline level already, bro.
It's ridiculous. It's just a mixed bag with this dude. Like, I thought he was going to go to the Jazz and kind of have a breakout season or two, especially after he showed flashes with the Lakers. But
Mm-hmm.
he's another dude who just doesn't shoot the three well enough in today's NBA. Not only that, he doesn't do anything particularly really, really well. I mean, I guess you could put him in the Marquel Fultz category in regards to being able to get steals. He does average about a steal per game for his career. But I mean, like his assist numbers are low, his rebound numbers are low, his 3-point shooting numbers are low, his field goal percentage is low, and he's a volume shooter at that. Because if you're averaging 10.1 points per game, only on 39% shooting, that means
That's
he's putting
bad.
up shots.
Yeah, he's
You
putting up a
know,
lot of shots.
right. So once he gets out there, he's gonna try to shoot, and I think teams don't want that. They want him to go out there, facilitate, maybe contribute to the game in a positive way. But that's not. I don't know. I see why he's not on the team right now. To be 100, he's just he a gun.
He's one of those players where it's like I could see him turning into a system player if he gets with the right coach that is going to use him to his strengths, right? Um, but he's also one that he's had 3 years in a row of playing over 60 games. Last year, he only played 51 games. So it's not like you're getting extreme durability. Now it's not as injury prone. I personally look at it as if you can play between 60 and 62 games, that's a solid enough amount. You got, especially with as many players you have playing 50 games like that. But THT is a player that I think can help teams as a role player, but I haven't heard anything about THT. Nothing
Not since
on
he
the
left
market.
the Lakers. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the reality of it. He hasn't established himself as a guy. You got players like Luke Kennard and other role players, the Morris twins, even older players. The ones that we talk about. Who was that went to Atlanta? Like these foreign guys, the Bogdanoviches and so on and so forth. They at least become specialists in certain areas. THT is not a specialist at anything but shooting. Like
Yeah.
you averaged
And then you don't even do that well.
Right, like you
Yeah,
20 minutes a game at 10 points on 40 less than 40% shooting. That just means he's going out there and chucking up shots. Like he
yeah.
wants to get his shots up.
Yeah, THC may be one of those players as well that even if he doesn't sign with the team, maybe he goes maybe to the G League or something or overseas for a year, kind of refines his game, maybe comes back. He's still young enough. Like even if THC went away for a couple of years, come back at 25, 26 years old, if you can refine your game and what you've shown an ability to be solid defensively at least, like
Like
maybe you can
Dante
get back
Exum.
in.
Like
Yeah.
Dante Exum did.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a name I really did not expect to hear last offseason when he signed. Uh
And
but
he
yeah,
went to the finals. Crazy.
yeah, went to the finals and actually played a role in that finals run as well. Next player. This one's a veteran. We'll talk about some young players in here. Marcus Morris Sr. How do you feel about like his brother signed? I can't remember where his brother signed. But Marcus Morris is always one of those guys who's like he plays, he gets minutes, but I'm always surprised when I see him on the team. It's like, damn, Marcus Morris is on this team now.
Yeah, Markeith when I think he re-signed with the Dallas Mavericks, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. But Marcus Morris Sr. is just he's a consummate role player. Like he's had his moments in which he averaged double digits throughout his career. But he what I like about this guy is whether he plays an entire season or not, if he's on a playoff team, he's the guy that's gonna hit that three that's like, oh man, that's that three that puts the lead up to force a timeout or that ties the game to force a timeout. Like he's a guy that takes big shots and makes big shots, whether he's coming fresh off the bench or he's been in the game the whole time. So the numbers don't really do him any justice, especially over the last couple of seasons. He's a role player's role player. When
Yeah.
you need somebody to go out there and get a big rebound, get a big block, get a good steal, hit a big three, get a layup, a putback, that's what you're getting from Marcus Morris Sr.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. And yeah, I mean, he's a guy. He had a nice stretch in his career between 2014 all the way into 2022-23. He was averaging double digits. Then last year for two teams with Philly and Cleveland, he wasn't able to do that. His role drastically changed. But I think he's a guy too that I could see him being a guy that signs maybe late into the season, maybe even right
Mm-hmm.
before training camp. And you may not see him well out in the season, but then if you get an injury, he can maybe come in and play a solid role for you. Kind of like what Torrey Craig has done for teams, before joining the Chicago Bulls. He can be that type of guy who the stats may not be there anymore, but he can still play a role for you. Look at solid
Thaddeus
shooter.
Young.
Yeah, solid shooter, 37% over the course of his NBA career from 3-point, taking 4.5 per game, 43% shooter overall from the field. So it's not like he's somebody who is a terrible shooter. He can maybe you don't want to make him a spot up shooter, but he can stretch the floor a little bit for you. So we'll see what happens with Marcus Morris. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the teams, maybe if a Philly eventually signs him, it's just for another depth piece, as they're still looking to fill out. Still got a couple of spots left on that roster, something like that. If it comes down to it, he
And
may
he's
be also be
34.
good for the Bucks.
He's an old 34 too. At
Yeah,
that,
that's a
is
fact.
he the one that had whiplash? No, that
I
was his
don't
brother.
listen. I always forget. I always get them mixed up, so I'm not even going to try to act like I know.
No, that was his brother because I'm not seeing the Miami Heat on his teams list. So that was his brother.
Okay. Then last on the list, another veteran, Evan Fournier. This guy who he fell out of the rotation with the New York Knicks last year. We all know that. Ends up getting traded to the Detroit Pistons. This guy, over the course of his NBA career, has been a solid shooter on teams. A career 37% shooter, but the last year with the Detroit Pistons, he only shot 27% from three, and even worse during that same season with the Knicks, only 13% from three. When you look at Evan Fournier, 31 years old, but not over the hill old. For some of the deals we've seen, like 34-year-old players, things get like that. Do you think there's a spot for Evan Fournier?
Oh yeah. Now he's not over the hill old, but he's older than he looks because of all his stuff he does for his national team. Like he's been playing for France for a very, very long time. But besides that, he's definitely going to find a team, and I doubt that he's going to shoot as poorly as he shot last season. Just considering the mental issues that occurred with the Knicks, right? Like
Mm,
he was buried on the bench after he went from playing 80 games with them, 14 points, 41% from the field, 40% from three. And then the very next season, he only played 27 games. His minutes were cut completely in half from 30 to 17. So by the time he got to last season, he only played 3 games for them. It's like he wasn't there mentally. And then he
yeah.
went to the Pistons, and it's the Pistons. Like they had a 20-something game losing streak at some point in
Mm,
that season last year. So like from a mental perspective, I can understand him just checking out. And he was even on the record talking about how, what happened with the Knicks. So I expect him to go to a team, maybe a contending team, maybe back to the Celtics, which he had his best year besides that first year with the Knicks. He shot 46% from three when he played for the Celtics, because all he had to do is really spot up and shoot. So maybe
Yeah.
he can make it to a team like the Celtics or a team like Philadelphia, or maybe one of these younger teams that need some veteran leadership. But I doubt that he'll play as poorly as he did these last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and that's sometimes I think, both us as like commentators, like generally not us specifically, and then also kind of the NBA world, you can kind of forget the situations around why a player may play bad, right? Like, and that plays into the thing. Like Evan Fournier is still a player that I feel can still be productive in the right situation. I'm not saying he needs to be a huge part of your rotation, but as a shooter who can give you some spot minutes, I think Evan Fournier could definitely help some teams out there. It just comes down to if you have the right role, the space, and if you want to take a shot on him. Whereas I think teams we've seen, maybe if they're going to take that shot on somebody as a rotational piece, they go younger. So even though Evan Fournier is only 31 years old, but that's just kind of the case on it. But I think even if he doesn't sign before the season, he'll get on there's always shooting's always a premium for teams. If you can shoot semi effectively, a team's going to eventually call you. I feel like.
I mean, even teams like the Bulls can use a player like Evan Fournier to come out and hit, consistent threes, kind of like what we expected Javon Carter to do out here in Chicago, but it just didn't happen. So maybe not, because sometimes people forget how to play when they come to Chicago.
Yeah, that's a
So
fact. That's a fact. There's one more player that I want to talk about here, and I just realized he was still out here. And that's Robert Covington. And the reason why I want to talk about Robert Covington is defensive versatility is still such an important thing. Robert Covington at one point it was talked about one of the better defenders in the league. People considered him one of the better defenders. I think when he got traded to Minnesota, people thought that the Philadelphia 76ers sent in the Jimmy Butler trade, if I'm not mistaken. And people thought, hey, well, the Minnesota Timberwolves got one of the better defenders in the league. And he's completely just fallen out of every rotation. He's 33 years old, can still defend multiple positions at a semi-high level. He's not really scoring in double digits anymore. Are you surprised at all that Robert Covington hasn't gotten on with the team either?
I'm surprised you even mentioned him. I ain't know Buddy was still in the league. Like that's
Exactly, right?
that's just the reality of it. Is I think his time is come and gone, bro. Defense, it can only carry you so far in this version of the NBA. In fact, some teams don't even really care about defense. Look at the Indiana Pacers last season. All they wanted to do was outpace teams, and that was it.
Yeah.
So like I doubt his agent can really get him to stick on a team that really needs somebody to go out there and stretch the floor and score, because that's really what people are looking for. Like if you go to the Bucks, for example, like what is he going to bring to the team? Like
Yeah.
not too much. Like defense is cool, but we need buckets.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact. Any last thoughts, Kev, before we get up out of here, brother?
Man, I'm excited, man. We getting to that time of year. It's gonna be football, then basketball, baseball, playoffs. Everything is happening at once, bro. Like we're not gonna be able to spend no time with our loved ones except for like scheduled time.
Yeah, I mean August is the last month where it's a little light because it's still football preseason, but once September, October hit, like
It's over with.
September, like it's all go. Like, and especially in October, you got football going on at its height at that point in time. Basketball's just starting, and then you got the hunt for the red October in baseball. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, sports fans, we about to, and listen. Did you see the new 2K trailer, Kev?
I have.
They may have gotten me back in on 2K, bro.
See, I'm always leery to say bad things about 2K because one of my good friends worked for them.
Okay.
I would love to have him come over. I'm gonna try to get him over here to NBA Central too. But at the end of the day, 2K just be up and down, and it's changed so much over the
Yeah.
years. Where it's like, if you ain't all greens, it's over with. So, but I buy it every year, out of support for my guy and so my son can play it. But I can never, it never really holds my attention the way that it used to 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it used to be where I almost played 2K all year round. There'd be a brief period, like a month and a half before the new one came out, where I'm like, okay, I'll stop playing. I'll just wait on the new one. But it
Yeah.
used to be a year round. Like I was always playing 2K. And then last year's 2K, maybe 2 months. And then I just thought about it the other day when I was actually playing NCAA. I was like, when's the last time I played 2K?
The grind is different too. Like I enjoyed the building your character through hard work as opposed to just buying microtransactions and just increasing your player on the first. So you buy the game for $100 basically, and then you got to spend another $100 to build your character up to be able to compete. The grind ain't the same, but again, it's for people. It's a whole new generation of people. People make money playing 2K. They got their Twitches, they got their 2K leagues, and so on and so forth. So I love how far the game has come from that first Iverson cover back in 1999.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Yeah, that's a wild, man. But shout out to 2K. But yeah, Kev, go ahead and tell them where they can follow you at, where they can check you out on the baseball tip, brother.
You already know. Follow me at Chicago White Sox and Cubs Central this year. We're gonna do a little different next year. But as the season progresses, the Cubs are fighting at least right now for a wild card berth. They beat St. Louis twice, two times in a row to try to get back into things. The White Sox are immersed in a 17-game losing streak. Man, it's crazy to see. But come kick it with your boy over on Chicago White Sox and Cubs Central.
Absolutely, man. You guys can follow us here at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related, man. We out here, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.